This poison was planted by Berg. He must have an antidote on him. Lu's lips were dry as he tried his best to suppress the agitation in his body. He searched Berg's body for a while, hoping to find an antidote to the aphrodisiac poison. However, his hopes were dashed. He searched for a long time but still could not find an antidote. I can only try the antidote rune, he thought to himself. Lu did not panic. He silently chanted the antidote in his heart. A purple rune phantom immediately appeared in the room. The rune phantom projected a holy light. Lu immediately felt warm all over his body, as if he was soaking in a hot spring. However, the restlessness in his body did not change at all. His breathing became heavier and heavier. What's going on? Why is the antidote rune not effective? As Lu was looking puzzled, Kamiya's voice sounded. It's useless. The spring poison is not a usual poison. There's no antidote. The antidote rune is also useless. Kamiya's voice was no longer as cold as before. Instead, it carried a strange charm. The antidote rune was useless. Lu was confused. He understood the situation in his body very well. His mind was filled with lust and he only wanted to have sex. It seemed that only by having sex with a woman could the poison be cured. Woman? There was only Kamiya in the entire house? Kamiya was the #1 beauty in the Simon Empire. She had an absolutely beautiful face, especially under the effects of the aphrodisiac poison. Her face was flushed red, and her bright red lips were like rose petals. Her twisting body constantly seduced the primitive impulse in Lu's body. He subconsciously licked his lips. You'd better stay put. I've been poisoned by the aphrodisiac poison. If you offend me, I'll definitely make you regret it. Kamiya was extremely beautiful, and even Lu was tempted. But he understood that he could not touch a woman like Kamiya, or else he would be in big trouble. It was definitely not worth it to be in trouble, or even to be killed, over a woman. A woman like Kamiya was like a poisonous scorpion in the desert. Under her beautiful appearance, there was a fierce aggressiveness and toxicity. Once he touched her, he would definitely suffer an act of crazy revenge. However, his rationality could not suppress the burning desire in his body. He needed a woman, he needed Kamiya's body. Lu could not control his body and walked towards Kamiya. Don't come over. If you come over again, I'll kill you. Kamiya looked at Lu who was walking towards her, and she suddenly became nervous. Lu wanted to release the rune, but his body didn't have any strength at all. On the contrary, this kind of resistance made Lu's desire magnify again. I also don't want to. Who asked for you to be poisoned by the aphrodisiac? Let me help you detoxify. Lu simply gave up on his rationality. After all, he had not done it on purpose. He and Kamiya had both been poisoned by the aphrodisiac, and it was not his original intention. No, don't. Kamiya moaned, but her voice became softer and softer, so soft that it sounded like the chirping of a mosquito. Although her mouth was still resisting, there seemed to be a voice in her heart that kept shouting, yearning, and destroying her psychological defense. Her eyes gradually became hazy, and her expression was seductive and extremely moving. Suddenly, Lu bent down and forcefully kissed Kamiya's bright red lips. A sweet taste spread on the tip of his tongue. Kamiya widened her eyes, and there was anger and confusion in her eyes. He dared to offend her. She was actually forcefully kissed by this unknown man. This was her first kiss. Before she had time to think, Lu had already violently pried her teeth, stuck his tongue in, and tasted Kamiya's sweet honey. Kamiya's mind instantly went blank. Ah! Kamiya cried out coquettishly as she was pushed onto the bed by Lu. His big hand caressed her body without any scruples. He took off her wedding dress and revealed a fair and smooth body. Kamiya's body was extremely hot. There was not a single bit of fat on her body. Her long, straight legs were crossed. The most private and sacred parts were faintly discernible, arousing Lu's endless desire. Due to the aphrodisiac poison, her skin had a layer of pink. It looked tender, like a ripe peach. A mouthful of it was full of juice. Lu used the tip of his tongue to pick up the tip of Kamiya's tongue and whispered in her ear, "Don't be nervous." Kamiya immediately trembled slightly. He gently removed the hands that were hugging Kamiya tightly in front of her chest. A pair of plump and towering virgin peaks were displayed in front of him. Kamiya moaned and Lu took one in his mouth. This was the most beautiful and moving body that Lu had ever seen, so he worked harder than ever. He used all the methods that he had mastered, and for a moment, the entire room was filled with the sounds of men and women having fun. The night passed, and Lu didn't know how many times he had been released. At first, Kamiya was still a little resistant, and because it was her first time, the progress was very slow and somewhat difficult. But Lu was, after all, a rune master, and his physical fitness far exceeded that of an ordinary person. After feeling the joy brought by the relationship between a man and a woman, she slowly became active. Under the effect of the aphrodisiac poison, she even took the initiative to ride on Lu's body, crazily releasing her passion. They lingered until daybreak, and only after the effect of the aphrodisiac poison subsided did the two fall into a deep sleep. After waking up, Lu rested his thick arms on his head. His brain had long recovered its calm. Beside him, Kamiya had her back to him. Her eyes were closed, but Lu knew that she was awake, too, and just didn't know how to face it. This result was not in my plan, it was not my original intention. Lu did not feel anything in his heart. After all, it was not his idea for such a thing to happen. However, after all, it was Kamiya who was at a disadvantage. As a man, Lu felt that it was necessary to give her an explanation. I know. Kamiya's voice was calm and there was no emotion in it. She was no longer as charming as she had been the night before. She had returned to her previous coldness. But Kamiya's heart was not as calm and indifferent as she looked on the outside. It was as if a huge wave had been set off, and she could not be calm at all. The scene of the two of them madly having sex kept appearing in her mind. This made the noble daughter of Earl Wilson feel ashamed, but it was more of an indescribable shyness and joy. At the same time, there was a trace of sadness. The reason she had stayed was to wait for the right man to appear, but now she had given her body to a man of unknown origin. Kamiya did not know how she would face her destined partner in the future. Kamiya's indifferent reply made the only trace of apology in Lu's heart disappear completely. He felt much more relaxed. He had had countless women, but they had all been built on equality and mutual benefit. This was the first time he had experienced such a wonderful experience. Smelling the faint fragrance from Kamiya, Lu recalled the passionate scene between the two of them last night. However, he quickly extinguished the memories. "Are you waiting for someone?" When he had been welcoming the bride, he sensed the conversation between Wilson and Kamiya. He had learned that Kamiya had not left Earl Wilson's mansion and had agreed to marry Berg because she was waiting for someone. "Yes." After a moment of silence, Kamiya replied, "When I was young, I met a rune master named Xana. She was proficient in divination and had never made a mistake. Shayna divined for me. She said that I would meet someone in the future. If I could wait for him to appear, my future would be limitless. If I couldn't wait." She stopped mid-sentence. Then, she suddenly changed the topic. "What are you going to do about this?" It was an accident." Lu spread his hands. He was not willing to continue with Kamiya. She was extremely cold and had a high desire for control. If he continued with Kamiya, he would only be controlled by her. "Berg was killed by me. It'll be impossible to tell who did it from the method, so you don't have to worry that this matter will affect you. As for the matter between us, you can rest assured that no one else will know. I can't do anything else." Even though Lu was infatuated with Kamiya's body, if he lost his freedom and listened to Kamiya's orders, he would never be free. Hearing Lu's answer, Kamiya cursed in her heart, "Bastard." At the same time, she felt a sense of loss. She was the most beautiful woman in the Simon Empire. Many nobles and men wanted to meet her, but they didn't get the chance. This man actually did not want to have anything to do with her. The arrogant Kamiya found this hard to accept, especially since this man had not intended to take responsibility. Although Kamiya did not intend to let him take responsibility, even if he wanted to, she was still a little angry. However, at the mention of Berg's death, Kamiya regained her calmness. "You are wrong. They will know the truth because the Grand Tutor has a strange rune that can retrace everything that happened here. He can also see what happened to us." There was actually someone in the royal family who had such a rune. Although Lu was a little surprised, he did not panic at all. Before he had come in, he had set up an illusion in the entire courtyard. As long as it was not a 9-star rune master or a high-level rune master who had mastered the purple rune, it was impossible to see through it. All they could see was the illusion that Lu had prepared in advance. Don't worry, I was prepared. The Grand Tutor couldn't see this. I set up the illusion before I entered the room. The illusion is fake. The Grand Tutor is a 6-star rune master. Although you can kill Berg, I think you are only a 2-star rune master at most. It's impossible for you to resist the Grand Tutor's prying eyes. If you don't believe me, what else can we do? Lu replied indifferently. Although it was an accident between us, I don't want others looking at my woman. So don't worry. The Grand Tutor would definitely have seen something else. It would have been impossible for him to see through my illusions. As Lu spoke, he got up from the bed and picked up the clothes on the ground. There was still one thing to be resolved, and that was Berg's body. Lu flicked his hand, and a flame flew out and landed on Berg's body. Berg's body immediately started burning. Kamiya had a puzzled look on her face. She did not know why Lu was doing this, but what happened next shocked her. She saw an extremely weak soul struggling out of Berg's body. It was a very strange shaped soul. It looked like a human-shaped creature, but it wasn't completely human. It had the characteristics of an animal, and its face looked like a fox. 9 furry fox tails fluttered behind it. 9-tailed fox? Kamiya cried out in surprise. She didn't expect that the soul of a 9-tailed fox would come out of Berg's body. The 9-tailed fox was an alien creature from another dimension. It had a deep-seated grudge against the humans in the rune world. 9-tailed fox? Lu asked curiously. He did not know much about the rune world. The only information he had was obtained from the Dawn Inn's library. The 9 demon foxes are foreign creatures from other dimensions. They are extremely powerful and hate humans, Kamiya explained. I didn't expect the Prince of the Simon Empire to be a foreign creature. Ha ha ha, how interesting. Lu understood. No wonder the once powerful Simon Empire was rapidly declining. Even the royal bloodline had been invaded by foreign creatures. The empire would collapse sooner or later. The moment the 9-tailed fox's soul appeared, it was burned to death by the flames Lu controlled. Lu's voice was cold. He said to Kamiya casually, I don't know about the matters of the Simon Empire, and I don't want to know either. But if anyone smells a rat about Berg, you can say this. He told Kamiya the contents of the illusion. Then he looked at her and said seriously, I know you are a calm person. This was voluntary. We don't owe each other anything. It happened, and we don't regret it. Just treat it as a beautiful encounter. Goodbye. We may never see each other again. After saying this, Lu's figure disappeared into thin air. Of course, he had not left the prince's residence. Before he left, he had to clean out Berg's vault. After a few times robbing vaults, Lu found himself somewhat addicted. After Lu left, Kamiya was stunned for a long time. She recalled what he had said. He had said that what had happened was voluntary and there was no debt. There was no regret. Just treat it as a beautiful encounter. These words sounded pretty good at first, but after careful consideration, it was actually Lu who was shirking the responsibility. Shameless, B*****. Did he think that she would pester him? Kamiya's feelings were extremely complicated toward the man who had taken her. He had destroyed her hope of advancing to the rune level. But he had saved her once again. If it were not for him, she would still have been tainted by Berg, and the Wilson family would have been eliminated by the Empress. And last night, she had even taken the initiative to ask him to have sex with her. When she thought of these things, Kamiya's face was boiling hot, and even her ears were suffused with pink. Her heart was filled with mixed feelings. When she was 5 years old, Earl Wilson had accidentally obtained a rune in the battlefield of the heavens. No one could understand the correct pronunciation, but Kamiya, who was only 5 years old, managed to understand it. The rune was love. Soon after Kamiya had got the love rune, she had met the Shana rune master. The Shana rune master divined for her and told her that she would have a chance when she was 18 years old. She would face her most critical moment. It was also the moment of luck. On this day, she would meet someone who could turn the love rune into a high-level rune. If she met this person, her future would be limitless. If she did not meet him, her future would be dark. There was even the possibility that her life would be in danger. She had just turned 18 this year and the Queen had threatened Earl Wilson to make marry Camia to Berg. As expected, the result of Shauna's divination had come true. The Queen had always regarded the Wilson family as a thorn in her side. All these years, she had been looking for an opportunity to weaken the power of the Wilson family. On this point, Earl Wilson and Camia had always thought that the prestige of the family had caused the king to feel fear. Such a situation was not rare in history. The monarch would always weaken the power of his subjects. Earl Wilson was dedicated to the empire and the human race. He had not put up any resistance. When Camia saw the soul of the nine-tailed fox crawl out of Berg's body, she had immediately realized that this matter was not simple. Berg was the descendant of a foreign creature and a human. The reason for this guess was that there were many examples in history where foreign creatures could transform into the appearance of humans. After having sex with humans, half human and half foreign creatures like Berg could be left behind. Although he looked human on the surface, his soul was indeed foreign. King Simon should not have any problems, so it must be the Queen. The seemingly dignified and virtuous Queen was actually a foreign creature in disguise. This made Camia feel a lingering fear. This involved a huge secret. She had to find an opportunity to tell her father about this. However, before that, she still had to follow that B*****'''''''''''''''''''''''''*'****************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** When she frowned slightly, she could still feel the pain left behind by last night's joy. Bastard, she gritted her teeth and cursed. For some reason, whenever she thought of this man, it was difficult for her to calm down. Camia shook her head and forcefully drove Lou's figure out of her mind to calm herself down. Then, she began to decorate the house according to his instructions. After finishing the decorations, Camia closed her eyes to rest. In her mind, a blue rune was emitting a gentle light. This blue rune was really a love rune that Camia had obtained when she was young. She had a total of 8 runes, and among them, most of the big ones were red or green runes. Only one rune was cyan. Last night, it was still a cyan rune, but after a night, it had become a high-level blue rune. In an instant, Camia understood everything. A smile that she had never seen before appeared on her face. It was a pure and happy smile. She smiled and muttered, "So you are that bastard." The ice-like heart melted completely at this moment. Camia's love runes were poison to her even if they were medicine. Once she fell in love with someone, she could not change her mind until death. That was why she had always maintained a cold attitude, preventing herself from falling in love and being influenced by lust. She had even meditated on a tranquil rune, allowing her mind to remain calm and tranquil at all times. She looked amiable on the outside, but she was ice-cold on the inside. All these years, not a single man had been able to enter her eyes, much less enter her heart. She had been waiting for the man that Sana had said she was destined to meet. As long as this man appeared, she would be able to transform her love rune from a green rune to a blue rune. Although blue runes could not be compared to purple runes and were not as rare and precious as purple runes, they were still the highest grade of runes that an ordinary person could possess. They were extremely rare and valuable to a rune master. As a top-grade rune, blue runes possessed magical abilities that far surpassed those of other grades. They were incomparably powerful. She had not expected that the person she had been waiting for was actually the man who had taken possession of her last night. This made Camia feel both surprised and flustered. The love rune had been triggered, and she now possessed the charming and mysterious man from last night. Even Camia could not control this mysterious man. She knew nothing about this man's background. Was he really worthy of her lifetime of love? Camia shook her head. No matter what, she believed in Sana's divination. This man could not only upgrade her love runes, but he was also worth her life to entrust to him. When she thought of this, Camia heaved a sigh of relief. Her heart was filled with sweet joy. Her originally frozen heart melted in an instant. The change in her state of mind made her move with a bright and beautiful expression. She no longer had that elegant and distant expression. Her entire temperament was sublimated in an instant. She was like an angel that had fallen into the mortal world. She was tainted with some of the aura of the mortal world. The change in her state of mind made her originally light blue runes become even more intense. So, this is what it feels like to fall in love with someone. The expression on Kamiya's face was incomparably complicated. If she had known it was him it was earlier, she wouldn't have treated him so coldly. She would have told him everything so that he would not leave. It was all her fault. A trace of regret flashed across Kamiya's pretty face. She did not even know his name. In the vast rune world, where was she going to find him? Kamiya's mood turned from joy to disappointment. Someone who knew Kamiya would definitely be stunned to see her like this, because no one in this world, whether it was family or friends, had ever seen her this way. Was this still the elegant and distant Kamiya that they knew? She was simply a girl in love and letting her imagination run wild. In the treasury at the bottom of Prince Berg's mansion, Lu was wantonly plundering the items in the treasury. This treasury was more than 200 square meters, and it contained all kinds of treasures. There were more than 10 million gold coins in it. The wooden boxes containing the gold coins were piled up in the corner. There were so many good things. Even the floor was made of a layer of gold. Too extravagant. Lu's eyes were shining. Compared to this place, Charles and Kelt's vaults were like sparrows' nests. Just the area alone was comparable to a small palace. There were countless treasures scattered on the wooden shelves. The assets of the entire vault were inestimable. One could imagine how many people Berg had plundered over the years to gather so much wealth. Lu quickly moved the things in the vault into his own space. While he was looting, he saw an area dedicated to women's jewelry. It was extremely precious, and one item looked very similar to what the queen had been wearing today. He immediately understood. This was not so much Berg's vault as the queen's vault. Then he thought of the nine-tailed fox's soul in Berg's body. Everything was clear. The queen was not a person, at least not her soul. It was very likely that her body was already occupied by the nine-tailed fox. That was why her luck was black. Only foreign creatures could have black fog. No wonder the Simon Empire was weak. It looked like the queen was taking care of the country, but the lives of the people were not improving. On the contrary, they were getting worse. The queen was the one who was really taking advantage of the Simon Empire. In order to play the role of a wise queen, she definitely could not have too many assets on the surface. That was why her assets had all been placed with Berg. Because he was her biological son, strictly speaking, Berg was also a foreign godfire. She trusted Berg very much, that was why she placed all these things here. Now, all these things belonged to Lu. The precious things were kept in his dimensional pocket. He didn't even let them touch the floor, he plundered everything. As for the matter of the Simon Empire and Kamiya, he couldn't be bothered to think about it, nor did he care about it. This country had nothing to do with him. As for Kamiya, it was a love affair. After last night, he had nothing to do with Kamiya anymore. After killing Berg and emptying 3 coffers in a row, Lu could be said to have far more wealth than the royal family. It just so happened that the matter of the Simon Empire was over, and Lu also planned to go somewhere else to change his life. It was also a good opportunity to stay away from this woman, Kamiya. Who knew how this woman would retaliate against him afterward? For a woman of noble birth, her heart was incomparably noble. After she recovered, she might even ask him to take responsibility for his actions. Lu was not stupid enough to think that Kamiya could fall in love with him. A woman like Kamiya would never fall in love with a man. Lu shook his head and dismissed Kamiya's figure from his mind. Then, he disappeared into the basement. When he reappeared, he was already in the quiet room of the Dawn Inn. He removed the illusion. He was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he was calculating his gains and losses for the day. He had killed Berg and a bunch of rotten noble children and emptied out 2 of the vaults. Especially Berg's coffers. The number of resources in his dimensional pocket had increased to a terrifying level. They were the personal coffers of the Queen of the Simon Empire. Just the gold coins alone were worth tens of millions. If the other items were put together, they would be worth at least several hundred million. Not only was the number of gold coins terrifying, but there were also all sorts of strange treasures inside. For example, there were 2 black pieces of iron in there, and they were quite large. Lu seemed to have seen it in a book. These iron pieces came from the battlefields of the heavens, and their origins were mysterious. He did not know exactly what they were used for. Other than that, there were all kinds of medicines and gemstones. The queen's vault was really astonishing. Even Lu felt a little uneasy. If a thief stole something, He would feel very happy if he stole gold, silver, jewelry, or some money. However, if he opened the door and found that the entire room was filled with money, he would feel a little terrified. He would think that he had gone to the wrong place and would not even dare to make a move. However, Lu did not think that way. These people's wealth came from exploiting the people. He did not feel any pressure at all. As long as he could take it, he could not let these damn royals and nobles benefit. After checking all the treasures in the space, Lu was extremely satisfied. Seeing the sky gradually brightening, Lu laughed. After daybreak, the Simon Empire will be in chaos. Borg had been killed on the night of his wedding. Queen Noda's private vault had been completely plundered, leaving nothing behind. It would be strange if it wasn't chaotic. The queen would probably go crazy. Thinking of this, Lu was very excited. He tidied up his clothes and walked out of the quiet room. 15th young master, have you finished your cultivation? After seeing Lu, some of the guests and maids greeted him. Lu also responded with a smile. These were all his witnesses. As long as they were present, he would have a perfect alibi, so he did not panic at all. Other than Lu, there were also other people who walked out of the quiet rooms one after another. Before entering the hall, he could hear the discussions inside. Lu is too desperate. He stayed in the meditation room for 3 days and didn't even attend Prince Berg's wedding. There's no other way. Other than Kamiya, only Lu has a chance to pass the rune school's test. That's why he is so focused on cultivating and trying to break through again before heading to the Shijiao Empire. Sigh, the rune school's test is too difficult. It's more than difficult. Those who can enter the rune school of the Shijiao Empire are all elites among the elites of the 9 great empires. There's still half a month before the academy's test. All of them are crazy. They don't even sleep. They are all training hard. Sigh, I also want to join the rune school of the Shijiao Empire. If I pass, my family will have great honor. Forget it, your talent is similar to mine. Our chances are not great, so we can only take the entrance exam for our own country's academy. Hearing the conversation of these people, Lu understood why so many people had been cultivating in the quiet room over the past few days. It turned out that the Shijiao Empire's rune school had begun their entrance exam. They walked into the lobby on the first floor. After seeing Lu, the eyes of the young lady at the front desk lit up, and she smiled gently. Young master's training has ended? Yes. Lu nodded with a smile. He looked at her and asked with a smile, it's so late, why aren't you resting? He had a good impression of this young lady. When he had played Celt yesterday morning, she had always adhered to her principles and defended her attitude. It made her feel very comfortable and trusted. I took a nap in the afternoon. Thank you for your concern, young master. When she heard Lu's concern, she felt sweet in her heart. It was as if she had eaten honey. A layer of red appeared on her face, then, she continued, oh right, 15th young master, yesterday morning, Celt came to look for you. He said that he wanted you to attend Prince Berg's wedding. I refused according to your instructions. Lu pretended to be surprised. He was stunned for a moment and asked in a surprised tone, Celt? Oh, I think I met him once in the library. Why would he invite me to Prince Berg's wedding? I'm not familiar with him. As for Prince Berg, I don't even know him. Thank you for refusing on my behalf. It's what I should do, she replied with a smile. I'm a little tired after cultivating for so long. I'll go back to my room to rest now. After bidding farewell, Lu returned to his room. The room had been tidied and cleaned up. The water in the bath had also been heated up. After a comfortable hot bath, Lu looked at the red glow in the sky outside the window and felt that the show was about to begin. It was up to the woman to deal with it, but it was none of his business. As soon as the rumors died down, he would leave the Simon Empire and enjoy his life. For now, let's sleep comfortably. He had drunk quite a lot that evening. Although the smell of alcohol had dissipated when he returned, his head was still a little drowsy. As Lu was in a night of deep sleep, the prince's residence was in a mess as if an explosion had occurred. In the new room, Kamiya screamed, someone. Her voice was extremely shrill. She began to act according to how Lu had specifically told her before he left. At this time, there were already some maids and soldiers outside. After hearing Kamiya's scream, they looked at each other but did not have any other reaction. They had seen this kind of thing many times. No one dared to disturb Prince Berg's good work. Their only thought was that Prince Berg was really energetic. He had started to have fun early in the morning. Just as they pretended not to hear anything, Kamiya came out of the room with a terrified expression. She shouted, "Someone has killed Prince Berg. Someone help." Prince Berg had been killed? The entire residence was in an uproar. Everyone in the prince's mansion was in a great panic. Prince Berg had died, and it was on his wedding night. As servants, although Berg's death had nothing to do with them, they could be dragged to be buried with him. Once the royal family flew into a rage, they would be held responsible, and everyone who might have come to the prince's mansion would be implicated. This was especially so for the soldiers of the prince's residence. They had neglected their duties and had not looked after them. In short, under the fury of the royal family, no one could escape unscathed. The prince's residence was in complete chaos. Look after the princess well. Don't let her take a single step out of this place. If she dares to leave without permission, kill her on the spot. The butler of the prince's residence had a gloomy expression that was filled with ruthlessness. After saying that, he hurried towards the imperial palace. Kamiya looked at the soldiers surrounding the room and didn't say anything. She silently retreated back to her room, and the frightened expression on her face disappeared. She yawned out of boredom and leisurely lay down on the soft bed. Thinking of the man who had taught her how to perform, she couldn't help but laugh. "You killed the groom, slept with the bride, and left after putting on your pants, leaving me to clean up your mess alone. What a shameless bastard." Her words were filled with sweetness. She wasn't worried at all about what would happen next. Even if the Grand Tutor came to investigate, no matter what he found, Berg's death had nothing to do with her. As long as Berg hadn't been killed by her, the royal family had no reason to touch her. Moreover, Berg was dead. There was no need for her to stay in the prince's residence, and the engagement with Berg would naturally be dissolved. She had even thought that as long as she left the prince's residence, she would immediately head to the Shijiao Empire to participate in the Rune Academy's assessment. But for now, she would act according to what that man had said. As for the queen, even though she knew that she was most likely related to a foreign creature, there was nothing she could do about her at the moment. The current Wilson family was indeed in decline. Earl Wilson was heavily injured and there was nothing she could do about it. Moreover, the king doted on the queen very much. He even let her handle the court affairs on his behalf, deceiving a large number of commoners and winning over the hearts of the people. It was impossible to shake the queen now. Therefore, Kamiya could only strengthen herself. Only when she had enough strength or formed a powerful force could she move to the queen. Just as she was thinking about this, she heard footsteps outside. Kamiya quickly got up from the bed. There was still a frightened look on her face as if she had not recovered from Berg's death. Bang! The door was violently pushed open. The king and queen arrived together, followed by a large number of soldiers. When they had found out that Berg had been killed, they had immediately come over. Moreover, they both suspected that Kamiya was the one who had killed Berg. Therefore, after pushing open the door, the king's first words were, "You killed Berg." His tone was filled with fury. He emitted a shocking killing intent. As the king of the Simon Empire, he controlled the life and death of anyone in the Simon Empire. He held a supreme position. Not only that, King Simon himself was also a powerful rune master. As the aura was released, Kamiya's expression changed slightly. She felt a pressure and even her breathing stopped. The queen frowned. She could tell at a glance that Kamiya was no longer a virgin. It seemed that Berg had raped her and had been killed by her in anger. If that was the case, the plan could only be considered half successful. Should she kill her or not? Just as the queen was thinking, Kamiya's voice trembled as she said, "I didn't kill Berg." "If you didn't kill him, then who did?" The king's voice was cold. "You should understand, the Grand Tutor can use runes to reconstruct what happened here. It's useless for you to deny it." Hearing this, Kamiya suddenly raised her head. Her eyes were red, and tears flickered. With humiliation and anger, she shouted at the king, "I said I didn't kill Berg. After Berg forced me, I was really angry. I didn't expect that he would be killed." Looking at the angry Kamiya, the king frowned. She didn't seem to be faking it. He tried his best to suppress his anger. "Then tell me, who killed Berg?" "Kelt." Kamiya said a name. Kamiya looked angry and relieved. "You didn't hear wrong. It's Kelt." "Kelt? How could it be him? HMPH, are you kidding me?" King Simon was completely furious. Who didn't know who Celt was? Even if he had 10 guts, he wouldn't dare to kill Berg. Moreover, he had no motive to kill Berg. These nobles completely relied on the royal family to enjoy a rich and noble life. How could they do such a stupid thing that would destroy their future? It really was Celt. If you don't believe me, you can wait for the Grand Tutor to come and use the runes to reconstruct what happened. You'll understand. If I didn't see Celt with my own eyes, I would never have thought that this obedient dog of his would actually kill his master. Kamia's expression was filled with satisfaction. Before the Grand Tutor comes, tell me what happened. The queen, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke. If what you say is different from what the Grand Tutor reconstructed, I will personally kill you. If you want to hear it, fine. She was waiting for this sentence. Kamiya thought of what the man had told her and repeated it in detail. After the wedding banquet, my maid brought me a pot of sobering soup, but I never expected that my maid would actually drug my sobering soup. It was the incurable 9-tailed fox's aphrodisiac poison. As she said this, her voice was filled with anger and fear. That was the maid who grew up with me. I don't know who bewitched her, but she actually poisoned me. I don't think you need me to explain what happened next. He's your husband. The queen's tone became heavier. Get to the point. Then, Celt suddenly appeared in the room, imprisoned me, and said something to Berg. I didn't hear a single word. It was as if their voices were cut off. As they spoke, their emotions became more and more agitated. In the end, Celt suddenly ambushed Berg, killed him, and burned him to ashes. After that, he ran away. From the beginning to the end, he didn't say a single word to me. Hearing Kamia's description, the king and queen frowned. They knew that this person was definitely not Celt. The real Celt was one of Berg's dogs. Moreover, he was addicted to lust. There was no reason for him to kill Berg, and it was impossible for him to not be attracted to a beauty like Kamia. Someone, the king shouted, call the guards from last night. The guards from the prince's residence were trembling with fear. Reporting to the king, all the guards from last night have disappeared. We suspect that they were killed by the murderer. HMPH. The king's expression was extremely gloomy. If what you said is true, then this person is definitely not an ordinary person. He is powerful. Not only can he turn invisible, but he can also change his appearance and control flames. He even has abilities that we have never thought of. Such a person definitely cannot be a good-for-nothing like Celt. No matter who it is, even if the entire Simon Empire is turned upside down, this person must be executed. Men, inform the marquises to come over and look for Celt. We have already sent people to search the hotels in the imperial capital. Who went out last night? At the same time, search for all the outsiders and their movements within the past half a month. Yes. The soldiers began to move, and the whole of the imperial city was filled with killing intent. When the sun rose, the imperial city became lively. However, the commoners discovered that the atmosphere today was a little strange. Rows of soldiers were patrolling the streets, searching house by house. The other government departments also had a large flow of personnel. Especially the high-ranking officials. They all rushed to the prince's residence with surprised expressions. What happened? I don't know. I just woke up and it's already like this. Sigh, something big is going to happen again. Lower your voice. The commoners all had terrified expressions. Some elderly people squatted in a corner and recalled the past. The Simon Empire wasn't like it was now. Although the days weren't considered wealthy, at least they could be considered happy. The royal family's attitude towards the commoners was also very friendly, but now, the days were getting more and more miserable. They did not even have enough food to eat. Many people died every day. Was this still the imperial city? As for the other cities of the Simon Empire, they were even worse than the imperial city. The commoners lived a more miserable life. In the prince's residence, at this time, more and more people came in. Everyone had a solemn expression. Wilson's entire body was shrouded in a thick murderous aura. He walked into the prince's residence with a livid expression. The prince's residence, which was filled with guests last night, was filled with a somber killing intent today. When Wilson had heard the news of Berg's death, he had rushed over as fast as he could. He thought that someone had killed Kamia. No matter what, he had to hold on to Kamia. At the very most, he would fight it out. If the Simon Empire did not want to cause great chaos, then the king would have to compromise. Once the Wilson family rebelled against the royal family, even the king would have to consider it carefully. "Brother, you're here?" Camilla looked at Wilson, tears streaming down her face. Her expression was filled with grievance, anger, and humiliation. "I really didn't kill Berg, but he deserved to die." "Sister, don't cry. What exactly happened?" The moment Wilson entered, he went straight for Camilla. He completely ignored the king and queen. His body was filled with a terrifying killing intent. Anyone could see it. However, no one said anything. This included the king and queen. Everyone knew that once the Wilson family was driven mad, the Simon Empire would definitely be in turmoil. This was the reason why the king was afraid of the Wilson family. The Wilson family had too much power and prestige, especially in the army. Because of this, King Simon had no choice but to weaken the Wilson family. But he was not stupid enough to force the Wilson family into a dead end. Camilla recounted what had happened. After hearing it, Wilson was stunned. At first, he thought that his sister had killed Berg, and he was ready to fight the royal family. But it wasn't her. He felt a little regretful. He had been patient with the damn royal family for a long time. If it weren't for Earl Wilson's suppression, he would have rebelled a long time ago. He would rather be sent to the battlefield of the heavens than stay in the imperial capital, which was deliberately suppressed. He didn't know how long he would have to wait for this opportunity. As for the matter of Berg forcing his sister to submit, Wilson did not believe it at all. How could he not know Camilla's character? If Berg had really forced Camilla, she would not shed tears. Instead, she would act as if nothing had happened and try her best to take revenge on the entire royal family. She would not stop until she achieved her goal. In terms of intelligence, Camilla was the #1 person in the Wilson family. Even Wilson had to admire her. Such a person could cry? At least Wilson had never seen Camilla cry. Before they had got married, Camilla must have expected what would happen next, but she had been extremely calm. It was abnormal. Everything in front of him was too abnormal. Wilson looked at Camilla seriously, but he could not see anything. But he knew that Camilla was definitely lying and pretending. In that case, as a brother, he had to cooperate well. After hearing Camilla's words, he deliberately pretended to be very angry and roared, "What? Berg drugged you and forced you?" He turned to the king. "Your Majesty, you had to help my sister." There was nothing wrong with his words, but his expression was too fake. It was obvious that he was pretending. Camilla was speechless. She covered her head with her hand. Her brother's acting was too exaggerated. "Be starred." The king scolded Wilson loudly. "Camilla is Berg's wife. She should do anything. Besides, Berg has already been killed. There's not even a corpse left. How do you want me to stand up for you?" Beside him, a few silent counts and dukes wanted to laugh, but they did not dare to. They stepped forward to smooth things over. "Your Majesty, don't be angry. Wilson is in a rush and cares too much about Camilla. That's why he acted so rashly. Don't take it to heart." Wilson quickly apologized to Your Majesty. "Your Majesty, the most important thing now is to find the murderer." King Simon was annoyed. These officials always spoke useless nonsense. If they were really asked to do something, they would not be able to. He shouted outside in annoyance, "Is the Grand Tutor not here yet? Where is Kelt? Why isn't he here yet? Hurry up and send someone to speed him up. You bunch of good-for-nothings, what are you standing here for?" Just as he finished speaking, a middle-aged man who had a sorrowful expression immediately knelt outside. "Your Majesty, my son, Kelt, is dead. He died at home. Your Majesty must make a decision for me." 5 or 6 servants followed behind him, carrying a corpse covered with a white cloth. They lifted it and took a look. They frowned slightly. The deceased was indeed Kelt. An old man went forward to carefully examine it, then said to the crowd, "Kelt was crushed to death by a huge force. All the bones in his body were crushed, and he has been dead for a day." "He died a day ago?" Wilson asked in puzzlement. "Then who went to my house to pick up the bride yesterday?" He clearly remembered that Kelt was among the people who had picked up the bride yesterday. When the crowd heard that, they were shocked. Just this alone could basically eliminate Camilla's suspicion, because, from the day of the wedding, Kelt had been in everyone's sight. That meant that the murderer had long disguised himself as Celt and sneaked into the prince's mansion. It was all for the purpose of killing Berg. It could be seen that it was premeditated. "That person is the murderer." A voice came from afar. An old man with white hair walked over and sighed softly. "Yesterday, I saw the person who pretended to be Celt. I felt that there was something wrong with him. For example, although he was smiling, his eyes were extremely cold. At that time, I didn't think too much about it. After all, I don't know Celt very well." Sigh, I didn't notice it in time. This old man was the Grand Tutor of the Simon Empire. He was almost 300 years old this year. He had gone through 4 changes of kings of the Simon Empire and rarely appeared. Only for important matters of the royal family would he appear. Even though he was king, Simon still had to be polite when he saw the Grand Tutor. "Grand Tutor." King Simon bowed. "Thank you for appearing this time." Before he could finish, the Grand Tutor waved his hand. "Your Majesty, there's no need to say more. I know and understand. Let's begin." After saying that, he walked into the new room. A green rune appeared above his head. Holy light enveloped the entire room. Then, an image appeared in front of him. In the image, a maid walked out with a hangover soup, and Kamiya drank the hangover soup. Kamiya was also watching. These images were her experiences. What happened after the courage was different from what happened to her. The real situation was that after Berg came in, the man followed him in, but in this image, he didn't appear at all. What happened after that was completely different from what actually happened. Kamiya knew that these were all illusions set up by that man. But she could not help but feel a little worried. She felt relieved when she saw what happened next. The murderer, disguised as Celt, had indeed appeared. After talking with Berg for a few minutes, the two of them seemed to be arguing. Their emotions were getting more and more agitated. Then, Celt suddenly had a ferocious expression. He launched a sneak attack on Berg, burned Berg's body into ashes, and escaped from the royal mansion. The scene ended here. Kamiya secretly heaved a sigh of relief. However, she still pretended to be indignant, and at the same time, she was extremely shocked. How did he do it? This was unbelievable. What she saw was no different from the real thing. When she said that it was an illusion, she didn't really believe it because it sounded too unbelievable. Although she had heard that illusion runes could create illusions, they were still very easy to recognize. Especially in front of a 7-star rune master like the Grand Tutor, it was usually impossible to successfully disguise. But now, it had successfully fooled everyone. Why was his illusion rune so powerful? Kamiya's heart had an indescribable emotion. There was love, admiration, and pride. If one had to describe it in one sentence, it would be, "My man is so powerful." Women were all attracted to strong people. After the broadcast, the runic shadow above the Grand Tutor's head disappeared. The Grand Tutor looked tired and was panting heavily. "Your Majesty, my runes have not been upgraded to blue runes. Otherwise, I would have heard what they said." "Thank you for your hard work, Grand Tutor," King Simon said softly. The Grand Tutor waved his hand. He was really too old. His life had already come to an end. It would consume a large amount of energy to not activate a single rune. He raised his eyelids slightly and glanced at Kamiya before leaving the prince's residence with the help of the others. The king's expression was solemn. "Pass down my orders. Every hotel, especially those who are over 30 years old, must investigate the movements over their guests over the past few days, especially at night. If anyone leaves the hotel at night without knowing their movements, arrest them all and interrogate them. Give me a cup of tea. Anyone who dares to disobey will be executed." The king's voice was extremely cold, causing everyone present to shiver. After this order was given, who knew how many more people would die? The Simon Empire was about to change. After a long time, King Simon looked at Kamiya and sighed. "Berg is dead, and your marriage contract is void. What are your plans?" Since it was proven that it was not Kamiya, the Simon Empire would not continue to make things difficult for her. "I want to go to the Shijiao Empire to participate in the Rune Academy's assessment." Kamiya's expression was desolate as she replied seriously, "I don't want to stay here, I want to leave." "Sure." Just as Kamiya finished speaking, the queen nodded her head in agreement. Everyone looked at the queen in surprise, including King Simon and Kamiya herself. Many people knew that the queen had always been against Kamiya. They had thought that she would make things difficult for Kamiya, but she had agreed so readily. Even Kamiya herself had not expected this. The queen said casually, although Berg is dead, you are still husband and wife. I think the news of Berg's death will be a great shock to you. It will be good for you to go out and relax. Moreover, the Rune Academy in the Shiruo Empire will start soon. If you participate in the assessment, you can also let the students of the other empires see the genius of our Simon Empire. There wasn't a single problem with the reason. As for the real reason, only she herself knew. It was the prince's residence's vault, her personal vault. If Berg was here, then nothing would happen. But now that Berg was dead, if Kamiya didn't leave and stayed in the prince's residence, then once the vault was in Kamiya's hands, all her efforts over the years would have been in vain. That was why she had agreed to let Kamiya leave the Simon Empire. Thank you. After thanking her, Kamiya stood up and walked out without the slightest bit of reluctance. She didn't want to stay here for even a moment. Not a single person stopped her, including the king. His son was dead, and his plan had failed. If he forcefully kept Kamiya, he would only anger Earl Wilson. What he wanted was to weaken the Wilson family, not the betrayal of the Wilson family. Young Wilson followed closely behind Kamiya. On the way, he had wanted to ask about the things in the picture, but Kamiya only glared at him. Wilson swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth and followed behind him. He had a lot of things to say, but he could not say them. He felt really uncomfortable. But he could see that his sister was in a good mood. The closer they were to home, the more relaxed Kamiya looked. When she walked into the house, a smile appeared on her face. It made Wilson believe his own thoughts. Berg definitely hadn't bullied Kamiya. They went to the natural lake in the backyard. An old man was fishing by the lake. It was their father, Earl Wilson. He was one of the 12 guardians of the human race. The 12 guardians were the powerhouses who led the defense on the heavenly battlefield. There were only 12 guardians in the entire Rune world. Father, I've waited for that person. Kamiya had just arrived, and this was the first thing she said. Kamiya knew that her father had always been worried about her. Earl Wilson, who was fishing, suddenly stood up when he heard this. He looked at the genuine smile on Kamiya's face and laughed loudly. Good. He looked at his daughter's genuine smile. It meant that not only did that person appear, but his daughter was also very satisfied. Then that was enough. Even if he died, this girl would not fall from the Wilson family. His nerves, which had been tense for many years, relaxed, and his injuries became even more serious. He spat out a mouthful of black blood. Father, Kamiya and little Wilson nervously went forward to support Earl Wilson. Earl Wilson waved his hand and wiped the bloodstains carelessly. It's nothing, I'm just old. He suddenly remembered the spiritual perception that had probed his residence yesterday. He smiled and said, Is he in the wedding procession? Hearing this, Kamiya was stunned for a moment. Father, how did you know? Our spiritual perception had a short contact. His soul is very powerful, very young, but very pure. I've never seen a young man with such powerful spiritual energy. Who is he? I'm not sure about his real identity. Kamiya told him everything. This time, she was telling the truth. However, there were some things that Kamiya skipped. For example, she did not tell him that after the two were poisoned, they had sex. She also did not tell him about Lu's specific appearance. Otherwise, if little Wilson found out, he would turn the entire imperial capital upside down. However, it was only a simple description, and it still shocked little Wilson. The person who killed Berg was actually the person his sister had been waiting for. Was this man so powerful that he could even fool the Grand Tutor's detection runes? This was the Grand Tutor, a 7-star rune master who had lived for more than 300 years. It wasn't easy to fool him. Moreover, according to Kamiya's description, he could also change his appearance, control water, fire, invisibility, and metal. Wilson believed that his talent was outstanding, and he had heard of many geniuses. However, he had never heard of anyone who could possess such runes at such a young age. No wonder his sister had not wanted to speak on the way home. This kind of thing could only be said safely at home. Seeing that sister is so happy, she must be very satisfied. The moment he said this, Kamiya's face immediately turned red. Satisfied, she was very satisfied. It was just that she did not even know his name or where he was. Perhaps he had already left the Simon Empire. With his ability, if he wanted to quietly escape the Simon Empire, he would not attract anyone's attention at all. He had many abilities. Just his disguising and invisibility abilities would make it very difficult to capture him. In a few days, she would leave the Simon Empire and head to the Rune School of the Illumination Empire to take the assessment. She didn't know when she would be able to meet him in the future. Thinking of this, she felt a little sad. Unknowingly, she was worried about that man again. Dawn in. As soon as Lu woke up, he heard a commotion outside. He opened the door and took a look. It turned out that someone was asking about the whereabouts of the guests last night. He was secretly happy. The commotion had already spread to the capital of the Simon Empire. The young lady from the front desk was also there. The first thing she saw was Lu. She immediately revealed a sweet smile. "I'm sorry, 13th young master. I've disturbed your rest." "It's nothing. What happened?" Lu pretended not to know what had happened. "Prince Berg was killed during his wedding yesterday. We are now investigating the whereabouts of last night's guests." "Right, Kelt died yesterday too." "Kelt died too?" Lu pretended to be a little surprised. "What happened to him?" The young lady told him the general story and then sighed softly. Fortunately, it proved Miss Kamia's innocence in the end. Alas, the Simon Empire is getting more and more chaotic. "You know Kamiya?" Lu asked when she mentioned Kamiya. "Of course. Kamiya is not only the most beautiful woman in the Simon Empire, but also a good friend of our Miss. She often comes to Dawn Inn to visit our Miss. Our Miss comes from the Dawn family." So that was how it was. No wonder a little maid knew Kamiya. As they were talking, a few soldiers walked over, intending to interrogate Lu. Before Lu could speak, the young lady began to explain, "You don't have to investigate 13th young master. He has been cultivating in the quiet room for the past 2 days and hasn't left. Everyone at Dawn Inn knows this. If you don't believe me, you can interrogate the other guests." Hearing her, the soldiers looked at each other and did not ask any more questions. They turned around and left. Since there were so many people who could testify, there was no need to ask. They were not very serious about this matter. It was just a routine matter. "I didn't expect that Kelt would invite me to the wedding yesterday morning, and then he met with an accident on the same day." Lu sighed with emotion. At the same time, the image of Kamiya appeared in his mind. This woman had really acted perfectly according to what he had told her. The Simon Empire is very chaotic. The young lady didn't hide her disgust. She said softly, "I followed Miss to many countries, but there's nowhere like the Simon Empire. Fortunately, I'm leaving soon. Our Miss will go to the Shijiao Empire to participate in the Rune Academy's assessment." After saying this, her mood improved a lot. She looked at Lu and asked softly, 13th young master, when are you returning to the Shijiao Empire?" "To the Shijiao Empire? That's right," Lu smiled and said, "I'm only here for these few days." Now that he had avenged himself and had money, it was time for him to leave. He had planned to leave the Simon Empire, but he hadn't decided which country to go to yet. He had been hearing about the Shijiao Empire from Berg for the past few days. It seemed like this country was quite good. Moreover, it had the best Rune Academy in the Rune world. Lu decided to head to the Shijiao Empire to start a new life of wealth and leisure. However, it seemed that many people thought of themselves as the prince of the Shijiao Empire. This matter had to be clarified, or it would cause unnecessary accidents. It could also save a lot of trouble. In fact, Lu really wanted to leave now. However, he knew that he had to wait a little longer. Only a guilty person would leave the capital of the Simon Empire in a hurry at this time. If he made such a move, he would be targeted by the soldiers. Right now, the streets were filled with soldiers. Once he went out, he would be interrogated by them. He might not even be able to leave the city gates. He could indeed turn invisible and disguise himself to leave this place, but he could not always transform into someone else's appearance, right? What he needed was a new identity to start a new godly fire. If he did not expose his true appearance, once he was suspected, the Simon Empire would definitely not let it go. When that time came, there would be endless trouble coming for him. Therefore, he had to be safe. After eating some food, Lu went to the library and planned to continue enriching his knowledge of this world. There were many more people in the library today than yesterday. There were very few people reading books, and most of them were just chatting. This was more in line with Lu's intentions. He just happened to come over to inquire about some news, and at the same time, he could get rid of his identity as the prince of the Shijiao Empire. As soon as Lu entered, everyone's eyes immediately focused on him. There was nothing they could do. Lu's appearance was really so outstanding. Not only that, but even his temperament seemed different under the effect of the runes. He was like a king who could dominate the world and control the life and death of others. The nobles present were not very proud, but after seeing Lu, they could not help but be impressed by his appearance. Some women's hearts were racing as they looked at Lu with love in their eyes. The library suddenly became quiet. Lu was stunned for a moment, then he said with a smile, "What's wrong with all of you? It seems that no matter where I go, whatever time I arrive, the originally good atmosphere will suddenly become quiet." He stopped. A lot of people laughed. A beautiful girl chuckled and said, "Young master, you must be joking. It's not that you're not here at the right time. But everyone is worried that the sound of their voice will affect you. In fact, many people really want to talk to you." 13th Young Master, I'm Lorca. My name is Rexton. Vivian. They all took the initiative to greet Lu. Lu also smiled and replied to them. After a while, he became friends with them. Rexton smiled and said, "This morning, Lorca was cultivating in a quiet room, but his father caught him and sent him straight to the prince's residence. He was beaten up for a long time, but Lorca didn't move at all." Lorca hung his head with a helpless look on his face. "Why should I go there? Our family isn't a big family. Why should we get involved in Prince Berg's death? My father didn't want to go either. After all, he had to face the king's anger, and he insisted that I go. Ha ha ha, I'm not going, and neither are you. Just wait to be beaten up again when you get back." Hearing his words, the others all laughed out loud. I heard that many of the people who attended the wedding banquet yesterday had disappeared. Even now, they still can't be found. I bet they were killed by the murderer. HMPH. But it's good that they were killed. None of these people were good. Rexton sighed softly. What a pity, but Kamiya, she's my goddess. Sigh. My heart aches. Forget it. Let's not talk about this. Lorca. How much confidence do you have that you can pass the Runic Academy's assessment? Hearing Rexton's sad expression, Lu was secretly happy. I'm sorry, friend. Your goddess spent the night with me last night. When Lorca heard Rexton's words, she was also a little dejected. Where did the confidence come from? The Runic Academy's assessment has always been the most difficult among the 9 great academies. Those who can pass all the assessments are extremely rare. Vivian also sighed. Sigh, only those monstrous geniuses have the confidence. Speaking of which, there are still quite a number of geniuses in the 9 great empires. Jack, James, and so on. Every empire has a few of these heaven-defying missions. Our Simon Empire. Sigh. Our Shijiao Empire is still the most powerful. All sorts of monsters have appeared, especially the Allen family's ace. I heard that he has already comprehended the third sister's purple runes. His family's combat and assassination martial arts have been cultivated to an extremely profound realm. He is publicly acknowledged as the #1 genius of the 9 great empires. In the past, those who participated in the assessment were the most dazzling experts who came out from the heavenly battlefield. But this year, only Ace belongs. This is Ace's era. I heard that the 5 or 6 geniuses from the Shijiao Empire who came out from the heavenly battlefield were all suppressed by Ace until they couldn't raise their heads. You have to know that he is only 17 this year. Logically speaking, it would be best for him to participate in the assessment at the age of 18. After all, 1 more year of training would make him stronger, but he doesn't need it at all. Because there are no opponents, that's why Ace doesn't care about wasting time. Saying this, everyone looked at Lu. Lu was very surprised. Why are you looking at me while talking? He was listening to this information very seriously. Although he wasn't very concerned about these things, it could help him better understand this world and better integrate into this world's life. That was why he was listening to them so carefully. Rexton asked, 13th Young Master, you are the 13th Prince of the Shijiao Empire. What do you think of Ace? Have you met him? Finally, someone brought up this matter. Lu pretended to be surprised. The 13th Prince of the Shijiao Empire? Lu looked at Rexton blankly. Rexton, why do you think I am the 13th Prince of the Shijiao Empire? Everyone was stunned when they saw Lu's stunned expression. Rexton was also stunned. He asked in surprise, "Aren't you the 13th prince of the Shijiao Empire?" "No, Rexton. Why do you think so? I don't think I've ever said that I'm from the Shijiao Empire, right? Do you think that I'm the prince of the Shijiao Empire just because I'm wearing the Shijiao Empire's clothes?" Lu's tone was very sincere, and there was also some surprise. The others looked at each other in complete disbelief. Young Master 13 indeed did not say that he was from the Illumination Empire, much less that he was a prince of the Illumination Empire. Kelt had asked young Master 13 if he was from the Illumination Empire. I remember that young Master 13 answered, "Hello, Kelt," but he did not answer. Kelt asked the 13th young master what his name was again, and the 13th young master's answer was 13. Then, it seemed that we all mistook the 13th young master for a prince of the Shijiao Empire. We were indeed mistaken. The 13th young master has never directly said that he is the 13th prince. When these words came out, everyone was a little speechless, so they had made a mistake, it was a joke. Lu had a helpless look on his face. He sighed softly and said, "So that's how it is. No matter where I go, no one talks to me, so they have mistaken me for a prince. I'm sorry. I'm really not a prince. I've disappointed all of you." "What kind of words are those?" Rexton smiled and said, "It's good that you're not a prince. That way, we don't have to worry and can chat more freely." Although they knew that Lu was not a prince, no one dared to look down on him. No matter how they looked at it, Lu's bearing and demeanor did not seem like those of an ordinary person. "Rexton is right." Lorca smiled and said, "If you were a prince, there would be a lot of pressure for us to talk to you. After all, the prince of the Shijiao Empire is incomparably noble and would never look people in the eye. He's very proud. It's much better now. We can say whatever we want to say. We can get along as friends. By the way, where are you from, 13th young master?" Hearing this, Lu smiled and said, "I can only say that this is the first time I've come to the 9 countries. Don't ask any more. It's really not convenient to reveal it." As soon as Lu said this, the scene immediately became quiet. He wasn't a prince, so everyone let out a sigh of relief. But they never expected that. Lu's identity was even harder to imagine. This was the first time he had come to the 9 nations, and this was already very obvious. In the entire runic world, other than the 9 great empires, there was only the heavenly battlefield. In other words, Lu had come from the heavenly battlefield. Who were those people who could live on the heavenly battlefield? At the very least, they were powerful rune masters or the clansmen of these rune masters. Everyone who came out of the heavenly battlefield was extremely powerful. The rune masters of the heavenly battlefield were even more powerful, especially the 12 guardian rune masters. Seeing that Lu's temperament and image were so good, he wasn't like the other people who had come out of the heavenly battlefield. They had all been filled with killing intent. They guessed that Lu's background was definitely not simple. It was very likely that he was a powerful rune master or an elder. It was terrifying to imagine. Even the king of the empire had to be respectful to such a figure. As for them, they were not even qualified to inquire about it. That was why Lu had been very tactful in saying that it was inconvenient to reveal other things. "No worries, no worries." Rexton quickly smiled and changed the topic. Since it's the 13th young master's first time here, he won't be very familiar with many things. "Lorca, aren't you known as a know-it-all?" quickly explained the situation in the 9 great empires to the 13th young master. They very consciously did not mention Lu's identity. After Lorca heard Lu's words and learned that it was his first time in the 9 countries, he already regretted what he had said before. Now, he could not wait to change the topic and say something else. The 9 countries are actually not that different, and there's nothing much to say. If you want to talk about it, let's talk about the rune academies. Every empire will have a rune school. The most famous and powerful one is the rune school of the Shijiao Empire. Each year, it will recruit no more than 500 students from the rune world, accounting for half of the total resources of the 9 nations' education. On average, each student will spend more than 1 million gold coins a year on education, and it is publicly recognized as the #1 school of the human race. The enrollment method is very fair. As long as you can pass the examination, you will be admitted to the rune school. As long as you can pass the academy's assessment, as long as you are a human, No matter what your identity is, even if you are a beggar, you can become a supreme rune master. From then on, you will have the respect of countless people. If you cannot pass the assessment, even if you are a member of the imperial family, even if you are a noble prince, you cannot enter the Rune Academy. The Rune School is the most sacred place of the human race. It is just that cold and heartless. Anyone who can enter the Rune School is a genius among geniuses. There are less than 2,000 students in the Rune School, but they have an unimaginable amount of teachers. Even the 9-star Rune Masters, the Ritz Rune King, the Aoxing Rune King, and the Tian Rune King, who stand at the top of the Rune world, have taught students in there. Those are 9-star Rune Masters. There are only 3 in the entire Rune world, and they are known as the Rune Kings. As long as I can hear their teachings, I'm willing to die. Many people have become world-famous experts after listening to the teachings of the Rune Kings. Lorca's face was full of longing and excitement. Besides the Rune King, there are many generals, marshals, kings of countries, and wandering Rune Masters who are already famous in the Rune world. In short, the Rune School of the Shi Jiao Empire is a holy land for Rune Masters. In the Rune School, there are 2 lists that are publicly recognized by the 9 great empires. One is the Genius List, and the other is the Beauty List. Lorca continued to talk about the gossip of the Rune School. Everyone perked up when they heard the gossip. Most of the men present were naturally interested when they heard about the Beauty List. Even Vivian, this woman, was interested in this. After all, women were born with the desire to compare. The Genius Rankings are the rankings of the Academy's Genius Academies. They're too far away from us. Let's talk about these beauty rankings properly. The men's eyes lit up. There are only 10 people on the beauty rankings. Although the number is small, each of them is a beauty of the 9 great empires. It's enough to make the men of the 9 great empires go crazy over them. Whether it's talent or looks, they're all top-notch. Only 1 out of a trillion people can go on this list. Lorca's expression was filled with yearning. The first place is also recognized by the world as the number 1 beauty. It is Ike from the Ice Empire. She is already a junior this year. After entering the Rune School, she became the number 1 beauty for 3 consecutive years. No one doubts her looks. I heard that anyone who has seen Ike will be deeply attracted to her. Then, deep in their ashamed hearts, it is as if they have seen an angel of the divine kingdom. There are countless people who admire her. The princes of the various empires are all obsessed with her, but no one dares to be rude to a beauty. As for Ike, she doesn't like any of them. Not only is she number 1 on the beauty rankings, but she is also number 1 on the genius rankings. Since the ancient times, there has only been one woman like her. I really don't know who is worthy of her. Number 2, Annie from the Scorching Sun Empire. Her looks and talent are slightly inferior to Ike's, but they are equally outstanding. Legend has it that when she was 9 years old, she followed her grandfather to the heavenly battlefield. A rank 7 white deer took the initiative to kneel in front of Annie and acknowledge her as its master. The antlers of this white deer produce a supreme elixir. She can take it 3 times a year. To buy it would cost at least 1,000,000 gold coins. She's only a sophomore and is already a tier 5 pharmacist. Once Ike graduates and leaves the academy, Annie will no doubt become number 1 on the beauty rankings. Sigh, actually, our empire's Kamiya is not inferior to these people. It's just a pity that with her ability, she will definitely pass the student assessment. Someone once said that as long as she goes, she will definitely be able to occupy a position on the beauty rankings. It's a pity that she was forced to marry Berg. Even now he has died, he cannot be forgiven. The first requirement to be ranked on the beauty rankings is to remain a virgin. Damn Berg, I really want to personally. The more Lorca spoke, the more excited he became. It was as if he wanted to personally kill Berg. However, there were other people in the library besides them, so Lorca did not say such rebellious words out loud. Otherwise, he would have been arrested and sent to prison. Lu rubbed his nose. Even if Berg was already a scapegoat for him, he would definitely not be able to rest in peace. Although the process last night was extremely beautiful, Kamiya was also very good in all aspects. Her body was soft and fragrant, especially her long, straight legs. He could play with them for a year. Her voice was pleasant to hear. After her coldness turned into heat, her voice was charming. In the end, She even took the initiative to cater to Lu. He turned around and directly pressed Lu under her body and crazily demanded things from him. Lorca was still speaking. A woman's shrill scream came from the direction of King Berg's residence. Ah! Everyone was stunned. They were all nobles, so it was impossible for them not to be familiar with this voice. Everyone immediately stood up, rushed to the window, and then headed toward the direction of the prince's residence. If I didn't hear wrongly, that voice belonged to the queen, right? Yes, that's right. Rexton frowned slightly. What could make the queen so furious? The murder of Berg? Impossible. Berg has been killed for a day already. It's too strange to have such a reaction now. Something big must have happened. Sigh, the Simon Empire is becoming more and more chaotic. Lorca and the others all sighed. After all, they were citizens of the Simon Empire and were nobles. They all had strong feelings and a sense of identity towards the Simon Empire. However, the changes in the Simon Empire over the years had made them very disappointed. On the other hand, Lu pretended to be surprised. But in his heart, he was already bursting with joy. The queen, this old witch, had finally discovered that her private vault had been taken. Lu had originally thought that the queen would grit her teeth and endure it. He had not expected her reaction to be so intense. Those who did not know would have thought that the queen was alone in a room with a super strong man. I've decided to head to the Shijiao Empire tomorrow. There's not much time left before the academy's assessment. Lorca personally sighed and said to everyone. Oh, tomorrow? It just so happens that I didn't know where to travel to either, so I'll go to the Shijiao Empire with you guys to take a look, he said with a smile. With someone accompanying him to leave the Simon Empire, it wouldn't be so eye-catching. Alright. When Lorca heard that Lu would be going with them, he couldn't be happier. It just so happens that we can accompany each other on the way. I'm going too, Rexton smiled and said, although I don't have much of a chance, I still want to give it a try. It'll be good to visit the Shijiao Empire as well. Right now, the Simon Empire was in turmoil. No one wanted to stay any longer. I'm going too. A lot of people agreed with him. Although the Rune School recruited less than 500 people each year, hundreds of thousands of people went to the Rune School to take the assessment every year. As long as they were under the age of 18, they could attempt to enter the school. They knew that there was no hope, but they still wanted to give it a try. What if they passed the test? Would that be a huge profit? Even if they couldn't pass the test, it would be good to see the sacred rune land in their hearts. At the very least, they wouldn't let this opportunity go to waste. After agreeing on a time, they all waved goodbye and went home to prepare the items on the way. Vivian smiled and said, Young Master 13, although the journey to the Shijiao Empire isn't far, it's still a few days' journey. Don't you need to prepare anything? For example, buy some horses or buy some servants and female slaves? Female slaves? Lu was surprised. There are female slaves in this world? Vivian saw Lu's puzzled look and said softly, they are the children of nobles or commoners who have committed crimes. These people are slaves. Slaves can only marry slaves, and the children they give birth to are still slaves. They will be slaves for generations. If they are bought by someone, it would be the beginning of their lucky life. Vivian said softly, the young lady at the front desk of the Dawn Inn used to be a slave. She was bought by the Dawn family and became a maid. As you are from the battlefield of the heavens, it's normal that you don't know about this. After all, the 9 nations are different from the battlefield of the heavens. Only then did Lu understand. So a female slave was also known as a maid. Lu had seen this kind of thing quite a few times. There were quite a few wealthy people, but which family didn't have a maid? We'll see, he replied with a smile. Now he didn't need to buy a maid. Even if he went to buy one, he would have to condense a rune that could keep them loyal. Since last night, when he had seen Kamiya betrayed by the personal maid she had grown up with, he had developed a sense of wariness in his heart. It was not as easy and carefree as when he had just arrived in this world. This was not a game. He could still start over after he died. This world had powerful individual forces, as well as forces that surpassed human rights. There were all sorts of schemes. If he was not careful, even if he had the help of the system, he would still die. Moreover, he had many secrets. He had no intention of having handmaidens when he could not guarantee the loyalty of these people. Hearing what Lu said, Vivian didn't say anything else and left after saying goodbye. Lu read some books in the library again. At first, it was quite interesting. After all, he needed to learn about this world, but he found that most of these books were books of basic common sense. The information was very limited. These books could no longer satisfy his needs. He needed more profound knowledge. In terms of profound knowledge, the Runic Academy definitely had the most complete books. Moreover, Lu felt that he was also very shallow in the use of runes. If he entered the Runic Academy to study, perhaps his strength would rise to a terrifying level. Rune School, why don't I give it a try? Thinking of this, he was delighted. He had only become a rune master a few days ago. Would he have a chance to pass the student assessment? If it was a test of strength, he wouldn't dare to say anything else. At the very least, his current influence was much stronger than Kamia's. If she had a high chance of passing the assessment, why wouldn't he be able to? But he was afraid that the test wasn't about strength. He would still be tested on some common knowledge or some knowledge that he had never heard of before, so he was helpless. But no matter what, the rune school was his best choice. Whether he could succeed or not, he would try. If he couldn't, he could just treat it as seeing the sacred land of runes. There wasn't much time left for the test, so he had to make some preparations. He had to condense more runes. Condensing runes could increase his strength. If it was a strength assessment, his chances of passing would be much higher. After leaving the library and returning to his room, Lu checked his surroundings, closed the doors and windows, and prepared to condense runes. He now possessed strengthening, invisibility, illusion, healing, detoxification, metal manipulation, fire, water flow, earth, stone, plants, as well as powerful space-time runes and fate runes. However, judging from the number and level of the runes, Lu was already very powerful. He had 10 purple runes and 2 golden runes. Each rune was enough to shock this world, and he could rely on these runes to become the strongest person in this world. He opened his personal attribute panel. Name: Lu. Age: 17. Level: 1-star rune master, 99%, life: beginner. Although he was powerful, Lu was actually still a 1-star rune master. No one could have imagined that a mere 1-star rune master would be able to sneak into the prince's residence and kill the prince of the Simon Empire. What Lu displayed did not seem like a 1-star rune master at all. On the contrary, the king and queen, Kamiya, and even Earl Wilson felt that he must be an extremely powerful rune master. At the very least, he should be an intermediate rune master. It was a very difficult process to condense runes. Moreover, the abilities that were usually obtained were random and not something that a rune master could control. However, Lu could condense the corresponding runes according to his own needs, and they were all top-notch purple runes. In terms of ability and quality, they far surpassed other rune masters. It was not an exaggeration to say that even if Lu were to face a 5-star rune master now, he was confident that he would be able to kill him. Furthermore, he had 2 golden runes that had never appeared in the history of the rune world. With these runes, as long as he raised his level, he would be invincible, an existence comparable to a god. Furthermore, with the continuous usage of runes over the past few days, his proficiency had reached 99%. As long as he used the runes once more, he would be able to advance to 2-star rune master. As for the increase in his level, Lu didn't need to worry at all. Other people needed to continuously train through meditation to level up. However, Lu only needed to continuously use runes to increase his proficiency. That was the difference. Thus, Lu didn't have much need for runes. For a moment, he wasn't sure what runes he needed to continue condensing. Loyalty, servant. Lu thought of what Vivian had said before. He might need some servants. At least when he was enjoying life, he would not have to do all the trivial things himself. That would be too shameful. But if he wanted servants, he had to ensure their loyalty. Thus, Lu decided to condense a rune related to servants and loyalty. Especially loyalty. Only with loyalty would he dare to have his servant stay by his side and not have to defend himself everywhere. Soon, this loyalty rune was condensed. However, Lu wasn't sure what kind of ability this rune would give him. He still had a lack of understanding towards the use of runes. However, he decided to give it a try. If it's not suitable, I can then peel it off. Anyway, I have a healing rune. Even if I peel off the rune, nothing will happen. Peeling off runes was a very painful thing. It would cause very serious damage to a rune master or someone who was controlled by the rune. If things went wrong, they would lose their lives. However, Lu peeled the rune, unless it was a fatal injury, it wouldn't have much of an effect. Thus, Lu let the loyalty runes sink into his mind. A lot of information about this rune appeared in his mind. The use of this loyalty rune was a bit special. It was different from other runes. This rune could be split into 9 runes, and the runes could enter the mind of others. The other party would be loyal to him, and he could also change the other party's body to a certain extent. There were no other side effects, and they would never betray Lu. They would only think that he was their master. With this rune, Lu was relieved. It's time to find a maid. Lu smiled. With his loyalty guaranteed, Lu would not refuse a maid to serve him. This was what a modern man should enjoy. He walked out of Dawn Inn. It was a bit cold outside. The passers-by looked nervous. They all walked quickly with their heads lowered, not daring to stay. Teams of soldiers were patrolling with weapons in their hands, occasionally searching the houses on the street. Occasionally, they could see people being pushed forward by the soldiers. These were the unlucky people who were treated as murderers by the soldiers. As long as they dared to defend themselves, they would be beaten and scolded by the soldiers. A good empire had become what it was today. The people did not have human rights. They were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered by the royal family. Ordinary people didn't even dare to say a word. If they said the wrong thing, they might be implicated and lose their lives. Only some nobles who had not lost their morals would sigh softly. The magnificent Simon Empire has actually fallen to such a state. It's simply hell. That's right. The current Simon Empire was hell. The nobles could still escape and go to other empires, but the ordinary commoners had no way to get out at all. Lu watched everything with a cold expression along the way. He really wanted to massacre the entire royal family of the Simon Empire, but unfortunately, he was temporarily unable to do so. He had to forcefully suppress the killing intent in his heart. However, he still thought to himself, why don't I set a goal for myself, such as destroying the Simon Empire or something like that? The queen was a foreign creature, not a human at all. The king was not innocent either, allowing the queen to harm the people. The nobles wantonly abused and exploited the commoners. No matter how glorious and beautiful this country used to be, it had completely decayed. 13th Young Master. On the way, Lu heard a shout and turned to look at Rexton. Lu smiled and said, "Didn't you go home to prepare the things you need for tomorrow? Why are you still wandering around outside?" "Hey, don't mention it." Rexton's face was full of sadness. He said softly, "My father only gave me 3,000 gold coins. What can I buy with this? The price of goods in the Shijiao Empire is much higher than that of the Simon Empire. When I reach the Shijiao Empire, it won't be long before I'm waiting to die, so I'll have to ask my sister for some more. She doesn't lack money. Enough talk about me. Where have you been?" Lu smiled. "I'm planning to buy a maid." "Buy a maid?" Rexton's eyes lit up. "That's good. My sister is the person in charge of the maid market. What kind of maid do you want to buy? The price will be absolutely fair." "Young Master 13, you should have bought a few female slaves a long time ago. If you have nothing to do, they can take care of your life. There's no need to do everything yourself." Rexton's interest was immediately piqued. He began to introduce the various types of female slaves to Lu, which made him feel very curious. The female slaves here were specially trained. They were trained in every skill imaginable. "Young Master 13, let me tell you." When Lu heard him call him 13th Young Master, it sounded very awkward. After all, it was just a name he had made up. He thought about it and made up a new name. "Don't call me Young Master 13, call me Night. Night, dark night." Lu liked night very much. During the day, he could suppress his desires. Only at night could he release them to his heart's content. Moreover, night often meant danger, death, and a challenge. Night? That's right. Rexton was stunned for a moment. He was a little surprised, but when he thought of Lu coming from the heavenly battlefield, he understood. Haha, okay. Night, night. I suggest that you buy someone nice to look at. With some beautiful women accompanying you. I think that even meditation and training runes will be much smoother. Then, you can buy some to take care of all aspects of your daily life. Soon, they arrived at the maidservant market. Rexton was very familiar with this place. As soon as he entered, an old man came out to welcome him. "Young master, you're here." After saying that, he looked at Lu and revealed a respectful smile. "This young master is a friend of my young master, right? What female slaves do you want to buy? We have everything here, even female run masters. I wonder what kind of female slaves you want. Don't play that game with me, this is my friend. Where's my sister?" Hearing this, the old man understood that this extraordinary person in front of him was indeed his young master's true friend. If it was fake, he wouldn't have said these things, so he changed his expression and said, "Miss knows that you're here. She said that she'll come over when she's done with her work. She has some things for me to tell you. She said that, young master, you've been here 8 times this month, once every 3 days or 2. She also said that you shouldn't go to the Dawn Inn for no reason." He was still a young man. Any young man would feel embarrassed if he was told that in front of his friends. His face flushed red. "I was improving myself." Lu could not help but laugh. At that moment, a magnetic voice came from afar. "Improving yourself? Who doesn't know your character? I heard that you have 7 or 8 lovers in Dawn Inn alone. If you want to play, our house is full of women for you to choose from. Why waste money on other places?" When she walked over and saw Lu, she instantly stopped. "Your biological sister, right?" Lu smiled and said to Rexton. If she wasn't his biological sister, she wouldn't be so merciless. This woman's appearance was average, but her figure was maintained well. There was a ball of green mist above her head. It seemed that her luck wasn't bad. Rexton revealed a helpless smile. "Sorry for making you laugh." Then, he looked at the woman and revealed an aggrieved expression. "Sister, my friend is here. Can't you give me some face? I'm not a child. I'm already 17 years old." "Ha ha ha, all right." The woman laughed. She walked over and greeted Lu. She smiled and said, "Young master, are you here for entertainment or to buy female slaves? Since you're my brother's friend, I'll definitely give you the best in terms of price. I wonder what kind of female slaves young master wants." Even this noble woman could not help but be stunned when she saw Lu. She had seen many men, handsome young masters, nobles, and so on, but she had never seen a man like Lu. He was extremely handsome, and his tall figure was like a statue in a temple. Not only that, he also had the bearing of a king. He looked like he could dominate the world and was brimming with confidence, but he did not have the arrogance and rudeness of the royal family's nobles. Such a person's confidence came from his heart and from his own strength. Unlike the royal family, it did not come from their status or power. However, when she thought of how a man with Lu's bearing would come here to buy female slaves, she was a little disappointed. Seeing the change in her expression, Rexton knew what she was thinking and quickly explained, "Sister, you've misunderstood." Lu waved his hand, indicating that there was no need for him to explain. He smiled and said to the woman, "This is my first time here. I don't know what I want. Can you show me first?" The woman smiled and said, "Sure." This was his first time here. Who was he trying to fool? Everyone who came here said that it was their first time here, and then they bought the most beautiful female slaves. After they got tired of them, they would either give them away or kill them. She had seen this kind of thing many times. Moreover, how could he not know what kind of person her brother was? What kind of good man could be hanging out with Rexton? She simply did not believe that there were any good men in this world. Lu knew what she was thinking, but he did not even want to explain because it was meaningless and unnecessary. After a while, they came to a high platform. The woman insisted on practicing the 5 paths below. She said, "Those who wear purple clothes accompany men. They know everything and still remain virgins. Those who wear blue clothes know some skills, such as dancing, making tea, and so on. Those who wear red clothes are still apprentices and are still learning." She didn't mention what skills they were learning. If they really came to buy female slaves for their families, they wouldn't come to buy them by themselves. Lu looked at these female slaves and secretly operated the fate runes. The luck of hundreds of female slaves suddenly appeared in front of his eyes. These female slaves' luck was very ordinary. After all, they would not naturally be very lucky if they had been reduced to being female slaves. Only a small portion of them had light red or light orange luck. These female slaves' appearances were quite outstanding. It seemed that they would meet a good family who would buy them and take them away. Suddenly, a dark purple light entered his eyes. It was a skinny girl dressed in gray clothes. She looked to be about 13 or 14 years old. She was kneeling on the ground and wiping the floor. Dark purple represented wealth. Lu had only seen it on Kamiya's head so far. After being stunned for a moment, Lu pointed at the little girl and said, "I want this girl who wipes the floor." They were all stunned. Their eyes were all the same. They were saying, "Are you kidding me?" Female slaves were divided into different levels. Among them, the female slaves who served men were at the highest level and were also the most expensive. Each of them cost at least 500 gold coins. The girl in gray was not even in these levels. She was a female slave among female slaves. She was the lowest level of existence here. This type of slave was usually in charge of some hard labor. If they were lucky and were bought, they would act as maids to the female slaves. Neither Rexton nor his sister thought that Lu would choose a female slave in gray. "Young master, are you kidding?" the woman said softly. "No one from my place is less than 100 gold coins. If you want to take her away, you have to pay at least 100 gold coins." Upon hearing this, Rexton was immediately displeased. He quickly said, "Sister, you can't do this. It's just a female slave in gray, and you're asking for 100 gold coins? Although she's not worth it, the rules can't be broken." The woman also looked at Lu as she spoke. She did not understand what he was planning. There were so many beautiful women here, yet he had chosen a female slave who did chores. Moreover, this female slave's appearance and figure were very ordinary. There was nothing special about her. Otherwise, she would not have been a lowly gray-clothed female slave. Was this a joke? Reston could only say to Lu, "Knight, there is indeed such a rule in the female slave market. No one is less than 100 gold coins. How about this? You pick another one and this gray-clothed female slave will be a gift. How about that?" "No need." Lu shook his head, took out a gold note worth 1,000 gold coins, and handed it to the woman. He smiled and said, "I only want her. 1,000 gold coins. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not rich, I just want her to know that I spent 1,000 gold coins to buy her. Not a gift. If she asks, or if anyone else asks, just say I bought her for 1,000 gold coins." "Thank you." After saying that, Lu slowly walked towards the female slave in gray. His arrival brightened the eyes of many female slaves showing off their talents. However, Lu did not even look at them. Instead, he walked straight towards the girl with the ordinary appearance, wearing the dirtiest and most tattered clothes, kneeling on the ground to wipe the floor. Noticing his arrival, she raised her head in a daze, her eyes instantly widening when she saw the good-looking young master. Immediately, she felt her inferiority complex. It was a kind of inferiority complex that was lower than dust, without any inferiority complex. She subconsciously took 2 steps back, afraid that she would dirty this young master. Then, she hurriedly lowered her head and whispered, Young master, can you stand at the side? This place is dirty. I haven't had the time to wipe it." She looked at Lu's shoes worriedly. What if she dirtied them? Lu squatted down. He carefully looked at the girl in front of him. Her appearance was indeed ordinary, but her eyes were very big and beautiful. They were like a clear spring, very pure. Her body looked very thin because of long-term malnutrition, and her hair was withered and yellow. Lu removed the rag from her hand and said softly, "You've been bought by me, come with me now." As he said that, he stretched out his hand and pulled her through the colorful crowd. The girl's eyes were at a loss. Can I be bought too?" The other female slaves were first surprised, then they looked at the girl with envy, jealousy, and resentment. They could not believe that she, a female slave in gray, had the right to be bought. Standing at the side, Rexton's sister was also puzzled. Looking at Lu holding the hand of the female slave in gray, her expression was complicated. She whispered to Rexton, "This friend of yours is a little different from the friends you have brought before." As the manager of the slave market, she had seen so many people. There were those who were despicable and there were those who seemed noble. No matter what kind of people they were, they all had one thing in common. It was that they never treated these slave girls as human beings. In their eyes, these slave girls were just a toy, a living thing. They never offered a price that was 10 times higher than their value just to protect the self-esteem of the slave girls. This person was extremely strange. He was so strange that he did not appear to be from the Simon Empire. How could such a man exist in this world? A complicated and indescribable emotion surged out of her heart. Looking at his expression just now, he must have understood it very well. She had originally thought that he had come here to have fun like the other young masters. Now she realized that he was just too lazy to explain. Rexton smiled and said, "That's right. Lu is not an ordinary person. Why do you think he did this? A female slave in gray costs 100 gold coins. This money is enough to buy a female slave in purple. You too. You didn't take this 1,000 gold coins unjustly." Rexton felt that Lu had suffered a great loss. The woman glared at him. "What do you know?" At that moment, the girl in gray looked at the female slaves in colorful clothes. In her eyes, these female slaves were all high and mighty figures. She quickly lowered her head with envy in her eyes. "Raise your head." Lu's voice was calm. "I bought you with 1,000 gold coins. You're much more noble than them. They are not as expensive as you." She did not understand the profound logic. Therefore, she could only use the most direct words to express the value. 1,000 gold coins? The girl's face was dull. After a while, she said softly, "Master, you paid too much. I am not valuable. I am a gift. I am not worth 1,000 gold coins. No, I am not even worth a single gold coin." Hearing this, Lu stopped. He squatted down and looked at her. With a serious expression, he said, "If I sell you for 1,000 gold coins, then you're worth 1,000 gold coins. You have to work very hard to prove that you're worth it. I'm buying you for 1,000 gold coins. Do you understand?" "Yes," she nodded seriously. "I understand, master. I'll work very hard to make myself worth this 1,000 gold coins. Also, don't call me master in the future. Call me young master, understand?" "I understand, master." "Young master." Lu stood up. He pulled her up and said, "From now on, look up at them. Don't be afraid. You're more expensive than them. They should be afraid of you, not the other way round." "Okay." The girl's heart and body were trembling. She firmly remembered what the young master had said. "I'm more expensive than all of them. I'm better than all of them. I'm not afraid of them. I'm not afraid." Her gray clothes were soaked in sweat because of her nervousness, but her head had been frozen. Slowly, she realized. The people who were looking at her had actually lowered their heads. An emotion that she could not describe surged out of her heart. She only felt that it was not a big deal to look up at them. "Amazing." The woman sighed softly. She turned to look at her useless younger brother and said softly, "Do you understand?" "A little. But it seems like I don't understand anything." Rexton scratched his head. The woman sighed helplessly. Lu held the girl's hand and came to the high platform. He smiled and said to the woman, "Please help her clean up." Of course, the woman smiled and replied. Her attitude now was completely different from before. Lu turned around and looked at the gray-clothed girl seriously. "Always remember one thing. In this world, other than me, no one is worthy of your fear, and no one is worthy of your respect. From today onwards, your name is Claire. Do you understand?" Claire nodded seriously. "I understand, young master." The girl was pulled by the manager, but she turned around as she walked. She was deeply afraid that Lu would disappear in the next second. She was even more afraid that everything that had just happened was just a dream. Rexton said softly, "I really don't understand you. Do you have to be so dedicated for a little girl?" "It's worth it." Lu smiled and said, "Because I spent 1,000 gold coins to buy her." Rexton did not understand. What kind of logic was this? He was completely dumbfounded. She was just a maid dressed in gray. He really did not see anything special about her. Rexton did not understand. Lu was too lazy to explain. This was a girl with dark purple luck. In the entire Simon Empire, other than Kamia, this was the only girl he had seen with such strong luck. And a slave girl. This was a huge deal. It was like buying an unremarkable object in an antique stall, but finding out it was a priceless antique. Moreover, she was still young. She could be properly nurtured. He had treated her this way so that the little girl would remember that he was the master who needed to be served loyally all her life. He had given her identity and respect. Just her luck alone was far better than those royal nobles. She only lacked an identity. Moreover, Lu could sense that her talent in cultivation was particularly high. Lu felt that he would truly stand at the peak of this world. He had randomly picked the name Claire. As for the reason, it was because he was used to it. Would Claire betray humanity? No. Just like how this little girl could not betray Lu after he planted her with the loyalty rune. The manager, Rexton's sister, took Claire to the most luxurious place to bathe. The spacious bath was already filled with milk, and the milk was sprinkled with rose petals. Milk was very precious. It was said that nobles drank it. Who would have thought that this place would be used for bathing? Next to her, incense was lit. The entire room looked very exquisite and luxurious, making the little girl feel like she was in a trance for a moment. Don't be nervous, the woman patted Claire's head and said softly. Okay. Claire took off her clothes, and her thin, small body stepped into the milk bath, washing every inch of her body seriously. She wanted to wash herself clean. She wanted to show her best side to the young master. The female slave market has been established for more than 400 years. You are not the most expensive one, but you are definitely the luckiest one. You have met a good master. Claire looked at the woman and did not say anything. Ever since she had been here, this was the first time she was so close to a manager. In the past, when she met a manager, she had to lower her head and kneel down from afar to show respect. But now, she remembered Lu's words. She would no longer lower her head to people other than him. She bravely looked at the manager and blinked her big eyes. The woman smiled and pinched her. From now on, you will be called Claire. Follow your master well. This is the greatest blessing in your life. I know. Claire blinked her big eyes. She said softly, did young master really spend 1,000 gold coins to buy me? Yes. The woman nodded. After taking a bath, Claire washed again with clean water. The woman changed her clothes for her. Your young master is right. You're more expensive than those people down there. It is not because you are expensive, but because your young master thinks you are. That is why you are expensive. Just like what your young master said, you have to work hard and keep working hard to make yourself worth 1,000 gold coins. I will, Claire replied very solemnly. She had always remembered what the manager said. The words of the master were the heavens. Whatever the master said was true. Since the young master had said that she was more expensive than them, then she was more expensive than them. Because that was what the young master had said. The young master had said that in this world, besides him, no one else was worthy of her fear. No one was worthy of her respect. Then it must be true. At the beginning, she was very afraid of facing the manager, but after listening to the young master's words, she was no longer afraid. She dared to look at the manager and she even dared to ask her questions. She did not know much. In her mind, there was only one belief, and that was that what the young master said must be right. She had to work hard and make herself worth 1,000 gold coins. She could not let the young master lose. Half an hour later, when the woman led Claire out, the originally dirty young girl was now as exquisite as a porcelain doll. Young master. When Claire saw Lu, she felt like he was running over. He looked at Claire with satisfaction, and with a wave of his hand, a few hundred gold coins appeared on the table. The woman smiled and said, young master, we can't accept this money. Everyone who goes out here has to dress up beautifully. You've misunderstood. Lu smiled and said, this is my reward for Rexton. If he hadn't brought me here, I wouldn't have met my Claire. This money isn't for you, it's for Rexton. After saying that, without waiting for anyone to answer, he led Claire out of the slave market. Claire's expression was filled with curiosity. This was the first time she had walked out of the market. She looked at Lu and said softly, young master, where are we going? To buy something. More than an hour later, a luxurious carriage and a few horses had been bought. Lu pointed at the coachman and said to Claire, Claire, you will be my maid from now on. Do you think you should drive this carriage or should I? Me? How can I let the young master drive the carriage? They laughed and he said, but you don't know how. I will work very hard to learn. Young master, don't worry, I will learn very quickly. I will definitely make myself worth 1,000 gold coins. Young master, don't sell me now. I am not worth anything yet. When I am worth something, you will not lose money. Seeing the serious look on Claire's face, Lu laughed out loud and patted her little head. Then you must work hard. Yes, I will. Claire clenched her little fists tightly. She looked very cute. Dawn in. The young lady at the front desk looked at the carriage and Claire, who had got out of the carriage. She asked curiously, "Is young Master 13 leaving the Simon Empire?" "Yes, he will leave tomorrow. My name is 13 Knight. You can call me Knight." "Knight? All right, young Master Knight." Lu smiled and said to her, "This is my maid. She is a little girl who doesn't know anything but will definitely work hard. Her name is Claire." "Hello Claire, my name is Brittany." "Hello Brittany, my name is Claire." The two girls introduced themselves to each other. Lu couldn't help but laugh when he saw how happy they were. After returning to his room, he specially ordered a lot of delicious food. All kinds of sumptuous delicacies filled the table. Lu smiled and said, "Hurry up and eat. Only when you are full can you have the energy to learn something. Sit down and eat at the table." Upon hearing Lu's words, Claire sat down obediently. Her big eyes were filled with joy as she ate happily. She had never eaten so much delicious food in her entire life. That was why she ate so happily. Everyone needed to go through a process of adaptation. Lu discovered that Claire's ability to adapt was particularly strong. When she was in New Fang City, she was still a little girl who had low self-esteem and was weak. Now, she was much better. This was a child who had a strong learning ability and a strong ability to adapt. According to the novel, this was a piece of unpolished jade. While she was eating, Lu said, "Close your eyes." Claire obeyed and immediately closed her eyes. A rune split from a loyal rune flew out from Lu's glabella and entered Claire's glabella. It shrouded Claire in a layer of holy purple light and lasted for more than 10 seconds before it disappeared. Lu was a little surprised. This speed of acceptance had been too fast. Logically speaking, it should have taken at least a few minutes for a person to receive runes from the outside world. However, Claire had directly absorbed the loyalty rune. This meant that her loyalty had reached an extremely high level, which meant that even if Lu hadn't done anything, she was extremely loyal. Even if he wanted her to die, she would not hesitate. Lu could not help but laugh. No wonder she was so adaptable. She treated his words as a motto. "Open your eyes," Lu smiled and said. He was very satisfied with this little girl. He could train her well. "Claire, can you read?" Lu asked casually. Claire nodded and said softly, "In the female slave market, everyone has to learn how to read." It was easy to learn how to read. He was preparing to condense some runes in the evening to prepare for the rune school's exam, so he could test her comprehension ability. When she had finished eating, Lu had already thought of the first rune for her. "Claire, come over here." Lu wrote a rune on the paper. "Learn." With the help of the system, Lu quickly understood the pronunciation of this rune. He softly recited it once. A purple rune phantom was instantly projected in the air. Lu said to Claire, "Remember this rune, remember my pronunciation, until it is exactly the same as mine. This is a rune phantom in the air, only then can you pass." "Got it, young master." Claire nodded seriously. Half an hour later, Claire recited the pronunciation of this rune perfectly over and over again, and a purple rune phantom suddenly appeared in the air. Lu was very satisfied, and said with a smile, "Now, let me explain to you what this rune means. This rune is..." The words were on the tip of his tongue, but he felt like he was stuck and couldn't say it out loud. No matter how Lu explained, he was unable to describe the meaning of learning runes. It was as if there was a force in heaven and earth that prevented him from describing the meaning of this rune. What the hell? What's going on? This made Lu feel very strange. It was a bit like he was about to say something, but he couldn't remember it no matter how hard he tried. However, the specifics were quite different. His bad temper suddenly flared up. He really didn't believe it. Could it be that he couldn't teach the meaning of runes? If he couldn't say it, then he could at least write it down. In the end, even that didn't work. As soon as he picked up the pen and was about to write a word, his mind would forget what he wanted to write. He would put down the pen and return to normal. Lu was completely speechless. No wonder he could only comprehend the profound meaning of runes in this world by himself. Because he couldn't teach it at all. "I can't directly, can I indirectly?" Lu was still unwilling to give up and decided to give it a try. Thus, he began to use all sorts of methods to hint at the meaning of this rune. A few hours later, even Lu's strengthened body felt extremely tired and he was panting. What I did just now, you go think about it and comprehend the meaning of this rune, do you understand? Yes. Claire nodded her head. Lou stretched his back, he was exhausted. It was not difficult to teach the pronunciation of runes, but it was too difficult to teach the meaning. He had spent so much effort, but Claire still seemed to understand it. He wanted to continue teaching her the other runes, but it seemed that he could not. He did not know when he would be able to completely understand a rune. Claire, if you are sleepy, go to the room next door and sleep. Yes, young master, Claire responded and squatted beside the chair. She sat for a while and then stand. Her mind was still thinking about the meaning of the rune. Her expression was also extremely serious. It made Lou extremely happy to see it. He had flown for a long time just now and allowed the little girl to open up her mind. His train of thought had also slowly opened up. The little girl needed to learn, so he gave her a learning rune. However, just one learning rune was not enough.